Welcome to another midweek preview show from Hoops and Dreams. George is here as usual to help me with this podcast. So let's start by reviewing QPR against Hull. I suspect nobody who follows the Championship closely expected Hull to do anything less than win. Their position in the top six truly reflects their performances, and they've scored in all of their last six matches. So it was no surprise it was a high-scoring match, but it was probably a shock when we won it 3-2. Our goal scorers were Chair, Dunn and Burrell, so we spread it around. Was this a neutral's delight, George, as both sides pushed forward and tried to outdo each other in an exciting contest?
Yeah, it was a great game of football, to say the least. It completely contradicted the conditions, which are horrible, by the way. Like
Yeah.
it was peeing it down the whole game. But no, it was a great game. I feel like we had the best chance to start off with. I feel like Burrell was really unlucky with his chance. Jake Clark sort of put the ball in the box, and then Kone was a bit late to the follow-up. But then they almost scored on the run of play. I thought it was really poor goalkeeping from Hamer. I know that potentially Jake Clark's also could have been tighter, but in my opinion, a goalkeeper at this level should never let it go in at the front post. So um, poor keeping on his behalf. And then our first goal, I felt like one of them had to go in, to be honest. Mbenge's strike was blocked, and then Chair was just right place, right time. And I think that really kick-started his performance. He was already doing well before that, but that really just brought out a different side of Chair. And then going into the second half, I was just really worried that it was going to be similar to Ipswich, where we concede so early on in the half, we just can't gather any sort of momentum. And then their goal. It was a good delivery by Giles, in all fairness. I said to my dad during the game that that's all he ever does. He gets it out of his foot and crosses it, and that's what he's made a living out of. So he's done really well for himself there. Great ball in. And then could Clark sort of done a little bit better for the goal potentially, but it was almost a little bit in front of him. So it was a good header, good delivery. But then scoring within 4 minutes after that really, really does help. And I think it was a brilliant finish from Jimmy Dunn. A finish of a striker, not a centre back. And from that moment on, I was really confident we'd go on and win the game. The fans were up for it. And then Burrell scoring again, it's really good for him. That's 6 goals now this year. And that just, I keep saying it every single time I come on. That shows what a bargain he's been, honestly. But he was onside, although their defenders just stood there as if he was off. And yeah, easy finish for him. And then after that, we didn't really, apart from one good save by Hamer, we didn't really have much to do defensively. Collie was really unlucky with his strike. I know fans could say that, oh, he should be finishing that, but the ball was a little bit behind him, so he was almost trying to get it out of his feet, and it was a great save by their keeper in the end. But you look at the game as a whole, and I think it was a really good performance. A team who were in the playoffs we were playing against, and you can see why because they're high scoring, but equally they just can't defend. So we took advantage of that. I think we had 25 shots in total throughout the game and an expected goals of 3, which you very rarely see at any point in the championship, let alone for QPR. So I think you look at the performance, it was a perfect way to bounce back from quite a disappointing 3 games before the international break.
Yeah, I mean, the point there was I think we came back twice from a goal down to snatch a victory. So kudos to the squad for continuing to work so hard. I should mention the inconsistent decision making by the ref as well. I thought it was really poor at times. If you're going to overlook fouls, then do it for all of them. Don't just be cherry picking. I know the standard of the championship can be a bit low, but Mr. Leamington did nothing to dispel my opinion of them. Yeah, I know you won't say anything because you're a ref, but it
No, oh mate, I'm their biggest critics. Don't worry, I'm their biggest critic. He wasn't great.
it was not a perfect team performance either, we should say. We dominated the possession, but we also gave away the ball too easily sometimes with sloppy passes. But we had 26 shots, although only 8 were on target. That said, I was really pleased to see that the players were dropping back when we were out of possession to help defend in numbers. We went into a 4-4-2 as we were defending. Some of those goal area ball clearances were made by attackers, so well done to them. Let's talk about the starting 11. First mention, of course, has to be the return of Jake Clark-Salter, out for nearly a year with a hip injury that needed surgery. QPR had the technology apparently to rebuild him better, stronger, and cheaper than Steve Austin, that $6 million man. And without any effective warm up matches, he started against Hull. And you think he did well, George?
Yeah, I think he did all right. He looked a little bit rusty at spells. I feel like it was always going to come off at that 60th minute. It was almost so
Yeah.
preconceived. Steve Cook was ready from the moment the second half whistle went, but he did quite well. As I said, potentially for the first goal, we could have been a little bit tighter to him, but then again, you rely on your keeper to save them at the near post. And then the second goal. At first, I blamed it on him when seeing it live because I thought, okay, the striker shouldn't have that much time to just head it in. But the delivery was so good, he was almost just behind the ball. So fair enough in that regard. But I was very shocked to see him start. Bear in mind the two development squad games he did play before, and he came off after half hour for different reasons. So I was shocked, but. Obviously, this coaching team, us as fans, know the quality that he has. It's just whether he can stay fit for a long period of time, and that it's going to take me a good 10, 15 games to believe that he can stay fit because, you know, he just has that, he's just so injury prone. So if he can get past that and show that quality that he has for a longer period of games, then yeah, he can definitely be an asset to the squad.
Yeah, he should be. You're absolutely right. The other surprise starters, well, at least for me anyway, were Burrell and Coney after returning only a day ago from their time away on international duties. Did that surprise you too, George?
A little bit, but I felt like he always had to start one of them
Yeah.
because he wasn't going to start Collie because obviously of he hasn't really been in the squad too much recently, and I really hoped he didn't start Frey, especially against Hull where we'd want to be attacking. So to start both of them was definitely a smart call, I'd probably say. I know Burrell didn't play in Jamaica's second game at all, and nor did Kone. So the only thing that really fatigued them is that bit of jet lag
Yeah.
potentially. But it was not like they were playing much football. So them two combine well at times. Again, I feel like Kone's looking a little bit off it at the moment. A couple of
Yes.
missed
Yeah.
passes. As I said last time, he's almost trying too hard to score and create things. Whereas he just needs to. I think he just needs a lucky goal that comes off his backside and he gets his goal get scoring again. But yeah, they combine well together again yesterday. So it was good to see.
Yeah, I go with that anyway. I mean, perhaps this seems a good time as also to mention the subs that came on. JCS, as you said, was replaced by Cook. Um, Coney came on for Coley. Sorry, yeah, Coley came on for Coney, get it right. And Mabengi was replaced by Morgan. And then the final one was Dembele being replaced by Saito. I think these were really good choices. What about you, George?
No, I completely agree. I feel like at Sheffield United at home, his substitutions weren't as great as what they could have been,
Mm.
and they really made an impact this time. Steve Cook looked solid at the back. Kieran Morgan looked really good at right back, played some good passes. And then Collie, he just made an instant impact, I feel. And that's the issue. He's got so much potential there, and he's got so much quality. It's just potentially whether you can argue about the attitude and behind the scenes, because obviously none of us know what's going on.
No.
But I don't know, it's just so frustrating to see. He brings so much more to the game than Frey does when he comes on, in my opinion, personally. So it is definitely good to see him on the bench. And then Saito, when he came on, he looked bright. But I feel like Dembele, he did really well when he started. So I wasn't shocked to see him make it to 80 minutes. He drove with the ball and he showed glimpses of the Dembele that we saw at the start of last season. So fingers
Yeah.
crossed that he
Yeah.
can rejuvenate that this year. So yeah, substitutions were good and it carried on momentum through.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that my only criticism of Dembele yesterday was that I was obviously on watching him in the first half, and he was standing in pockets as an attacker would when they're waiting to get the ball in space, not doing when we're out of possession, defending. He didn't have any idea where their number three was half the time, and that for me, I think it's not good. He's really got to work on that, and then I think he'll be a full, well-rounded player. Because in the modern game, I think you've just got to be able to help your team out by defending. I mean,
Mm.
again, I come back to watching Chair, Madsen, and everybody else doing the goalmouth clearances. It was important. Anyway, so Which players impressed you, George? I'm presuming the goal scorers.
Yeah, 100%. Ilias Chair was the big one for me. He loves scoring against Hull. I think he scored more against Hull than he has against any other club. Um, so yeah, he loves playing against Hull. Definitely one goal and one assist. You could potentially argue a second assist for Burrell's goal as well. He just really impressed me. In the games before the international break, he was almost back to old Ilias Chair, where he'd slow the game down a little bit. But he really impressed me yesterday. He was quick, he was decisive, and he did really well. Burrell again really impressed me. His pace just it really allows their defensive line to drop back that little bit, and that's something I really highlighted yesterday because their defensive line was so deep when we were attacking. It allowed our centre backs to push on, and most of the time, after Jake Clark-Salter and Jimmy Dunn were about 10, 15 yards into their half, which really just led to attacking phase after attacking phase. So I feel like Burrell did really well. And one that kind of went a bit under the radar for me was Mbenge at right back. When watching the game live, I didn't feel he did as well, but after watching back the extended highlights, he just adds that bit of more pace. And it's crazy to say because he's a right back, but in that attack, he can drive that ball about 30, 35 yards and can just get us up the pitch. So I was speaking to a Reading fan of mine actually, and he was saying about how he's potentially that little bit more comfortable at right back. And Jimmy Dunn
Yeah,
hasn't necessarily.
yeah.
Jimmy
I think you're
Dunn
right
hasn't.
there, and I totally agree about Mabengi. I thought at the time when we were watching it, because he's got that speed, because he surges forward, but we still know he can get back in time if
Mm,
need be. It's allowed the slower players like Dunn and obviously Clark Salter and Cook to perhaps rely on him at times to get back quicker than they can. So
mm.
that's allowed them, as you say, to push up. I
No,
think it's been a
100%.
big plus that it
Mm.
condensed that midfield, and we'll probably come up to talk about that with Blackburn later on. But anyway, so yeah, I agree with you. Burrell, Chair. I mean, I've got to give a mention to JCS and Mabengi as well at the back because they cope really well with a lively and skillful Hull attack. And I agree with you. My player of the match was Chair. I thought he had the best game of the season so far. Um, it's so much easier doing these podcasts when we're discussing a well-earned victory. Anyway, whilst Southampton won 5-1 against Charlton and Millwall lost 3-1 at Portsmouth, we went down to 19th at the beginning of the game and then finished up at 15th on 22 points. Smiles all round as we turn to our next opponents, Blackburn Rovers, on Wednesday. After our success on Saturday, are they a club to fear, George?
I think they're a club in form, not necessarily to fear. I know that they lost to Derby just before the international break, but Derby had won five in a row before that.
Yeah.
They've now won four out of their last five games, and they had a really disappointing start to the season, didn't they? Fans were calling for Ismail to go. Their squad wasn't looking exactly too great. Like I'm looking at it now, I haven't really heard of too many of them, and if I have, they're nothing too special. But no, they're a club who are in form, and you can never underestimate a teams like that. Obviously, the Championship is a league of teams who go on runs, but a team with confidence is definitely hard to beat, especially when they're at home. So yeah, Ishmael's always got that direct style, isn't he? Where he looks to play it into the wide areas, high up the pitch. We saw it first when he was at Barnsley, really, and that really led to their success that season. So it'll definitely be a difficult game away at Blackburn. A lot of travelling again this week, which potentially could be the issue. But no, I think we have every right to be confident. It's a bigger pitch than Loftus Road, which I feel like sometimes aids us as a team.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, definitely. I don't see why we can't be confident, but you don't want to be too complacent.
No, definitely not. I
Yeah.
mean, Blackburn are sitting in the bottom half of the championship now on 18th position with 19 points. But I really got to point out that only 3 points separate eighth from at 24 points from 17th at 21. So it's starting to look a bit like a dog eat dog in the mid table. Surprisingly, Blackburn seem to get better results on their travels. So perhaps we should not feel so aggrieved at the long travel north on a cold November night. Their last six games have been three losses and three wins, so no draws. And they won on Friday away at Preston North End 2-1, so that was pretty good. They've only failed to score in one of those games, I think, and that was against Coventry, yeah. So I think we can expect goal attempts from them. Our defending had better be strong, our team unified, and our attackers aiming true, which I think they will be, to be quite honest, after Saturday. They started out in life this season with a back four in I think it was 4-2-3-1, like us, but have since moved to a back three, and they're doing a 3-4-3 or a 3-4-2-1 if they have to. That seems to be aimed at strengthening their midfield, an area that we should worry about being overrunning, I feel. And finally, their top scorers are Ohashi and now I'm going to have to really screw this one up. Gui Johnson
Good
on
attempt. Good
four goals
attempt.
apiece. Both can play as a number nine. I guess we need to be aware of them, George. So
Hmm.
yeah, we got to plan accordingly.
No, 100%. I feel like they've also got two very capable wing backs in Hedges,
Yeah.
who's definitely loves an assist. I remember playing him last year and he did quite well. And another one who's kind of gone under the radar for them is their right wing back. I'm going to try out Ali Bourassi. He
Sounds
joined
good.
from he joined from Kortrijk in Belgium at the
Oh,
start of
okay.
the year. And I do love an EFL fantasy. I'm not going to lie, and he is in my team quite a lot because he is quite good for them. So yeah, there are a couple of players who we need to be wary of. And you're right, they started off the season as a four at the back. They're now as a three at the back. So whether you see that as more defensive or more going forward, it depends on how a team plays it, to be honest. And they got two big number nines up front. So it'll be interesting to see who Stefan chooses to deal with them. So definitely a tough game and a tactical game, I'll probably say.
Yeah, I think you're probably right on that. Yeah, and it will be interesting to see how they counter that midfield. They're considered very strong when it comes to stealing the ball from the opposition, which is no great surprise given the loaded midfield. And they're rated strong when it comes to defending set pieces, which does indicate good organisation and perhaps heading skills. They like to tack down the left flank and get in as many crosses as they can, but their weaknesses are in finishing and avoiding offside traps, with defending counter-attacks and giving away fouls in danger areas, both rated as very weak. To be honest, those stats could equally apply to QPR. Um, their strength appears to be in taking free kicks and use of long balls to bypass the midfield, which again we've been doing. Their weaknesses are finishing off moves, which we also seem to know about, and defending. So, are you optimistic, George?
Yeah, I am optimistic, I feel. It could be a game a bit like Wrexham away, I believe, that they got three centre backs at the back who aren't exactly the most mobile, I don't think. They're all natural centre backs. It's not like they're playing a full back there or a midfielder there. So they're all quite big. So I feel like if we can start Burrell in this game, we can really get the better of them with
Yeah,
with the pace advantage. And you just said they're not exactly the greatest at defending. They're a team similar to Mill in the way of they play for set pieces. They use their height advantage in these set pieces. So hopefully the game doesn't just turn into them. This is the big worry for me. If they go 1-0 up, I always say it whenever we play Blackburn in whatever season. If you
they'll
go
dig
1-0
in.
down, yeah, if you go 1-0 down, it is extremely difficult
Yeah,
to turn that game around. And we saw it actually. I think it was the first game of Mick Bill's era as QPR manager. We lost 1-0 away, first game of the season. I was there for that, and they went 1-0 up. And then after that, we just really couldn't threaten because they play the referee, and it was just a typical Blackburn side. So I'm really hoping it doesn't get to that. But if we can stay in the game, or if we can nick an early goal, even better. I really can see us carving their defence open, really. So yeah, I don't see why we can't be optimistic.
so do you think he'll stick with the same formation that we've been running up to now?
Yeah, I said it a couple of weeks ago. I don't see Stefan as the sort of manager who's going to change his
No.
formation to another team. So yeah, I can see us saying very similar tactically, 100%.
Well, let's focus upon QPR now. Who do you think will start in defence, George?
It, you know what? It's tough to say because we have so many options at the moment. I don't see him playing Jake Clark-Salter in back-to-back games. I
Nor
really
me.
don't. So I can see him playing Liam Morrison in there.
Yeah.
Jimmy Dunn will stay at centre back, in my opinion. He'll start Reece Norris and Davis again, and then Benge at right back. So it'll be a similar back four, but it'll just be Morrison instead of Clark-Salter because he just doesn't
Yeah,
want to take.
I think so too. Okay, what about the middle? You've got Varane, Morgan, Field, Madsen, and perhaps Vale we could consider there.
Once again, I can see him staying very similar. The only change I could potentially see is Sam Field in for Varane. Um, like Varane yesterday, he did all right, but once again played some sloppy passes,
He
and
did. Yeah.
he's got some bad memories of Blackburn away. That's not the reason why he won't start, by the way. He got sent off there last year, but no, I can see him starting Sam Field next to Madsen just to shoot up that midfield a little bit more.
Yeah, I'd go with that as well. I think that's a good choice. What about up front then? We've got let's see who we got. We've got Saito, Chair, Smith, of course, Poku, the very lesser spotted Poku. He must be around somewhere. Dembele and perhaps again Vale.
Yeah, there's plenty of options, and it's definitely good to see with the squad depth we have this year. I'd like him to start with Kone and Barrow again,
Yeah.
although I don't think he will. I've got a horrible feeling that he's going to start fraying this one just because he'll just try outmatch them physicality wise. So I can see him starting Frey alongside Barrow, something I personally don't agree with, but I can see
Uh,
it happening.
he's not
Um,
clicking.
yeah, exactly. I can see it happening. And then I can see Chair playing on the left again. I don't see why you take him out of the team, especially after his performance. And on the right, I think he'll start Smith potentially. Once again, something I don't necessarily agree with, but with 3 games in the week, I can see him doing that just for that little bit of pace. And yeah, that's what I feel like he'll go for. I don't necessarily agree with it, but bear in mind we got a game 3 days later in
Yeah.
Norwich. That's
No,
what I feel
no,
like.
no. That's perfectly valid. I think I'd go with that as well. Yeah, I think Coney may well get dropped and not start, but I'd like to see Coley in there. I'll be honest with you, the way he's playing at the moment, he could be very annoying.
100%.
Okay. The one thing that's puzzled me, I think, and I mentioned it earlier on, there was Poku was declared during the week as available for selection. He wasn't even on the bench. I mean, should we be reading too much into this, George?
I don't think so. I just touched on it then, but the squad depth we have this season is big, and you can see it being Poku isn't 100% there. Like he's available for selection, but he's not at 100% fitness. And if you're in Stefan's mind, who would you prefer on the bench? Someone like a Smith or a Collie who's raring to go 100% fit, or Poku who's an injury risk? So I can see why he did that. I don't think there's anything too much behind the scenes about that. Because who would you really drop from the bench, but perhaps from apart from maybe Frey, but then again, you're really lacking that natural striker then on the bench.
Mm.
So it's a good problem to have. It's just yeah, I wouldn't read too much into it.
No, I mean, you're right. It is a very good problem at the moment. I should mention that the only major injuries that we are suffering at the moment are Ziad Lakashi, who's still out with that severe ACL injury, and Joe Walsh, of course, with his broken wrist. So compare this with last year, George, and we had so many people out on major injuries. It's just incredible. Do you think we've improved our training regime, or is it good luck, or what?
Um, I don't. I think there's always an aspect of luck in football, and especially for QPR. Like, there's no doubt that we're going to have a bigger injury list in 2, 3 weeks' time because that's just how we're like. But I know that there's a big emphasis on the science behind it at QPR. I know that Ben Williams. I know that there's just a whole group of them who will monitor these players like completely into the smallest details. To then see whether they're fit and available. So some people take that as a positive, but some people take that as a negative because then it leads to team selections being a bit different. It leads to some
Yeah.
rotation in the squad where fans necessarily don't agree that that should happen. But for the championship season's huge. and it's relentless, and you want these players to be fit for as long as possible. I disagree with the fact that we should go into the season undercooked. I know that's something that Ben Williams has spoken about before. And I feel like that potentially might have been a reason for a poor start from us this year.
Yeah, could
Um,
be. Yeah.
but but then again, you look at it, we went through that spell of winning four on the trot, going unbeaten for a long period of time. So there's positives and negatives to it. It's just how you perceive football. But modern day football nowadays is all about the science, and I feel like we're definitely going down that route more since Nuri's come in. And yeah, it works in both ways, positives and negatives.
Yeah, sounds like Boris Johnson following the science, but we won't go into that.
Yeah.
Okay, it's about that time in the podcast, George, where I try and you and I both try and predict the result for the midweek match. So, what's your prediction for Blackburn versus QPR?
I really am optimistic for this one. I was going to go for a 2-0 win, but I had to think about it, and what you said, they do score in most of their games. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory.
Yeah, funny you should say that. Yeah, confidence may be an issue after some of the lackluster performances, but I'm going to go for a win. And I'm going to go for 2-1 as well, because I think that's a good call, I think. Anyway,
Mm.
so that's another preview show finished for you. It just remains for me to thank George, as ever, for joining me and you all for watching. Dave and James will be here for the next preview show, which is Norwich against QPR on the 29th. That should be a good match. And I should mention that James's young son Noah was there yesterday, and we won. So maybe he should start coming to a few more home games. The next midweek preview show that George and I are doing is going to be QPR against Birmingham. That's in early December. Up until then, come on, you R's.
How many you ask?